I'm Tyler MacDonald. I was raised in Mount Pearl my whole life. Basically, was raised as a Jehovah's Witness since birth. So I've only been out for it'll be 4 years in January. So my mother actually began speaking with Jehovah's Witnesses when she was pregnant with me. She got contacted actually at a bus stop. And this individual, beautiful young lady came over to her and said, "Hey, would you like your own copy of the Bible?" And she said, I was raised Roman Catholic, so we always had a Bible on our mantelpiece or whatever. It was around Christmas time. Never ever read it, but I wanted it. She wanted it as just to have, made her felt secure almost. So when they drop off the Bible, then they ask you if you want to study with them the truth about the Bible. What does the Bible really teach? This is kind of the terminology they get you with, right? Like, you've had this Bible your whole life, but now what do we know about the Bible that we can teach you that's any different? And that's how it started. Basically, she 21 years of age, with kind of in a rough situation, single mom. My father was kind of barely in the picture. So she actually got that in Dartmouth. She was at the bus stop in Dartmouth. She actually moved home to have me, and they followed her. So they basically were able to tell them that this individual was going to be moving from Dartmouth. She's interested in the truth about the Bible. And then someone else calls on your door like a week later. Super organized way of doing things. And, to be fair and to be kind of... it was a great upbringing. I had a great time. Nothing ever happened to me. It was fun. You miss out on some holidays. You're not celebrating Christmas. You're not celebrating birthdays, Easter, any kind of holiday that's deemed pagan. Halloween obviously is a no-go, but they kind of make it so that you're not missing out. I used to go to school and be like, people would be like, "I can't believe you don't celebrate birthdays," but I'd be like, that's nothing. I get gifts all the time.
So how do they make it? How do you, of course, celebratory things are a big part of people that go to this school, for example. You said they made it fun. How do they make it fun?
Well, for example, they would graduating school, even though higher education is not really something that they are, they like to partake in, but they would say well, if you get good marks when you pass, that'll be a gift. That's almost like a special occasion. They do anniversaries as well. So they do that. So, but it was more or less, you get kind of the term is kind of love bombed. They bomb you with all this love, especially when you're first coming around, helping my mom with the groceries. It was almost like she had no other choice to be a Jehovah's Witness, because they would come around, they would give toys to me, they would babysit for her. She was working 3 jobs. So they make it enjoyable to be one, because you feel like you're becoming a part of this big family, which, people I still consider, to be my family. That's there. But they do, like I said, keep it interesting. They try to make, good times. They'll have parties, dress-up parties for the children, just not around Halloween. So they'll get that fun. We do dress-up parties too. You feel like you're not missing out on a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So you said you were born into it. What was it like growing up with or as part of the Jehovah's Witnesses?
It was fun because some of the things, looking back on it now, you can kind of be a little bit upset about. They don't like you joining sports teams. I was a lover of the outdoors. I never stayed inside at all. I was always playing roller hockey, everything. Soccer, frisbee, whatever, climbing trees, whatever I could get my hands onto. And then but that you're not allowed to be a part of, I wouldn't go to hockey because they would use the scripture, 1 Corinthians 15:33, bad association spoil useful habits. So if you're not all for the religion, for the truth, if you're not all in it, you're basically not doing anything at all. You've got to be either all out of it and not a part of it, or all for it. Because if you're not all for it, then chances are you're probably going to die at Armageddon too.
Which is one of the main belief systems.
The main belief system. It's kind of a way that they keep you scared, of it actually coming. I've heard of people, myself too. I had dreams that the end of the world was coming. So just a little bit on that. You're told that, yeah, like the end of the world is going to come, and that Jehovah God is going to destroy everybody on earth, just except the faithful Jehovah's Witnesses. So think about that. It's not even a guarantee that if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you're going to make it, because you got to be a faithful, perfect Jehovah's Witness. And if you're not, then you're probably going to just get killed with everybody else. That's a crazy belief to believe as a kid.
And yeah, you said you're growing up believing that.
Believing it, having dreams that, like, holy crap, like the end of the world's coming. You got to get your stuff ready. You got to get ready, And it's kind of a traumatizing thing, because you got friends. You develop friends. You go to school. I mean, you go play hockey with people on the street. You love these people. You come to, like, have these friends in school that, I mean, you would never want them to die. But you just know that that's what's going to happen. You kind of just have to come to this grips, like, well, they're going to die, and I'm going to live forever on a paradise earth.
So how does that affect you now? I mean,
it was weird to like, when you become 25, and then because I left the religion based on, they kicked me out. I broke a rule. I broke a guideline, and then you have a meeting with 3 men. You have to tell them everything you did wrong, no matter if it's sexual in nature, and then they pass judgment on you, essentially, whether or not you get to stay as a member of the religion.
Would you be willing to talk about that, what happened there?
Yeah, all it was just having a relationship outside of a Jehovah's Witness. So you're not allowed to date anyone. It's all, that's where you kind of get to see the cult aspect of it. It's really drawn in together, like, You can't marry anyone outside. You can't do higher education. It's all designed for you to not find out that it's a cult, essentially, right? And, like, out of respect for my parents and stuff, I do kind of view it as a cult, but it's more or less a high control group, because you can separate them into 2 different groups. You have this regular everyday Jehovah's Witnesses that you would see just down the street here, going in and out for their meetings, and then you have the leaders of the religion. So they kind of decide, they have a secret meeting every Wednesday, and they decide what direction they're going to print the literature, whether or not they're going to say, we're going to target, no higher learning, or whether we're going to target, really stand fast on the blood issue, no taking of blood. So, like I said, there's 2 separate groups, and that's key to making it run, because you're in it, and you don't realize you're in a cult. That's the thing, is you're in it. And if someone was to tell, if you were to say to a regular Jehovah's Witness, I mean, you're in a cult, that would be offensive. They would take major offense to that, because they're told they're not in the cult. They're in a beautiful one true religion. So that's a super offensive thing for them to say, but that's the truth.
So you said it's been 4 years since you've left the Jehovah's Witnesses. What experience? What has that been like?
I kind of really got as close to, the world as I could, because that's the terminology they put on it. Like, yourself or someone who I met at school, that they're called worldly people, and you're not allowed to associate with them. Like I said, bad associations spoil useful habits. So if someone doesn't believe the same thing as you, they felt that was irreparably damaging to your faith. You would hang out with these people and not be able to get into God's kingdom and survive Armageddon. So I was kind of always liked hanging out with everybody. I'm a people person, so I wanted to hang out with Joe Blow on the street and play street hockey. I wanted to stay after school and play volleyball. I wanted to do everything. So you essentially had to lie to your parents to hang out with people. Like, no, I'm with Jehovah's Witnesses, but you'd really be with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. So the transition for me coming out of it was actually not as bad as some other people have, because I did have friends. I made friends that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses anyway. But like I said, when I got removed for having a consensual relationship with another person, I still thought that it was maybe the truth. I had a little bit of, like, maybe this is the truth. Am I sure about this? So I kind of felt like I was still disobeying God and the beliefs of the system that I grew up in, even when I was out of it. It wasn't until like about 2 years ago, 2 years after I originally got disfellowshipped from the religion, that I realized that, holy crap, like this is actually not true. It was a huge eureka moment for me. I can tell you a little bit about what happened too, if you'd like.
Please, yeah.
So what happened was my mother told me to. They actually produce videos. They have a JW Broadcasting studio where they'll have chats about the Bible and they'll give sermons almost, and then they'll put them up online for the 8.3 million members to take a look at, right? So my mom sent me this clip and she said, this is really encouraging and this is really like faith strengthening. I really want you to come back, so I really want you to watch this. So I never ever really listened to her, but this one time I did. I was missing her. So I watched this clip and it was about 1975. And in 1975, or in the years leading up to it, the leaders, the governing body at the time, put in print and had their own publications that they were writing that had the belief that the world was going to end in 1975. And they would recruit people based on that. So in the late 60s and early 70s, there was a massive influx of Jehovah's Witnesses because they were going around telling people for sure that the world was going to end in 1975 and that you needed to be a Jehovah's Witness. So one of my really close friends was an elder, was a high up, in the faith, in the religion at that point, and he told me a bit about it. And he admitted, it was in print. The governing body did talk about it. And it's kind of something that they're a bit ashamed of. But then he mentioned to me that they apologized some years later and that everything was fine. So that was the story that I took. I said, sure, all right, you apologize. That sounds reasonable, a reasonable story. But in this video that my mom sent me, it's produced by the governing body. It lied. It denied that ever happened because a lot of people left the religion after that. After nothing happened in 1975, everyone kind of was like, screw this, I'm out. And then what that brought about was, a lot of people sold their homes, a lot of people quit their jobs to basically throw themselves at the beliefs of this system that they were, proclaiming to be the truth, and lost their jobs, continued to lose their jobs, and then you got these people that are all discouraged, not getting everlasting life. So this is a big deal. So I knew that what the real truth was from an elder in the congregation. And then afterwards, I look at this video, which says the exact opposite. So immediately I was like, all right, who's lying to me? This person that I trusted, that I've known my whole life, or the governing body? Because one of you is lying to me. So that's when I woke up and said, holy crap, this video was lying to me. And then I met with a couple of the elders of the church, and I said, can you tell me what happened in 1975? And they told me exactly what I knew to happen, and that what I was taught growing up. And then I watched the video with them. I said, well, can you tell me something about this? And we watched the video together, and after it was done, I looked at them and I said, so who's lying to me? My friend or the governing body?
And what did they say?
They couldn't say anything. They said that the video was vague at best. And I countered with, well, you're married, aren't you? When's the last time, your wife was vague with you when you knew the truth? Did that really sit well with you? Because you're asking me to come back to this religion that's, I say is lying, you say is being vague. And I don't like vague. I want the truth.
Right.
So ever since then, it's kind of been known that MacDonald doesn't believe it anymore.
And okay, so let's go back a bit. You said you were heavily involved, that you had spent time at the headquarters. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So Bethel is something that's like a holy grail of the religion. Like growing up, if you met a Bethelite, that was like you could have been might as well you were standing next to Jesus, because you had to be super spiritual, super knowledgeable in order to go. So from a young age, I was watching videos of Bethel, because they'll put out these videos like join up videos, trying to collect members, and it was a bunch of young guys having a laugh, looked like they were playing sports too, it was a fun spot to hang out with, because you're hanging around guys your own age, right? That have the same beliefs. So you were having fun. You were having fun playing sports and all this. But you're basically volunteering your time to produce the literature that gets spread around. So yeah, from a very young age, I knew almost that was the direction that I was being steered in. I was good at, I like talking to people, I was personable, so they almost push you ahead if you're like that.
Okay.
So I applied to go to Bethel, which is in Georgetown, Ontario, when I was probably 19. And I didn't even really want to go at that time. I just kind of said, well, I'm going to apply to get everyone off my back. And 2 months later, I got accepted. And I was like, holy crap, like this is heavy. So you go up and you're at, it's Canadian headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's like I said, it's the elite of the elite get there. I didn't really deserve to get there, but it was a crazy experience because what it showed me was like, there's nothing really special about this. Because a lot of people, when you don't go to Bethel, you're like, oh man, I can't wait till I get to Bethel, and there's just a spiritual hub up there. We were still doing the same, like, disobedient things that we were doing back home. Like, my mom would come up to visit and be like, man, there's some lot of drinking goes on here. Because Jehovah's Witnesses are allowed to drink. It's probably one of the only things they're allowed to do, right? The experience of being there, I'm just trying to think about, you had to, I always say this to Melissa all the time, I'm like, I'll never be as cool as I was in Bethel.
What do you mean by that?
Because when you're in Bethel and you're up there around all the regular church-going people that aren't in Bethel, you still had to go to the meeting. Like, you still had to go to a church every now and again. So these people would see you, give you money, give you vouchers for food. Like, they would pay your credit card off for you if you were having trouble. Like, it is a crazy place to be because these people think that you are working directly for God. And that's it.
What's the facility like? What is Bethel like?
It's my job was actually the groundskeeper. So I was mowing lawns, trimming trees, making it you would walk in there and be like, this place is immaculate. You could eat off every surface in there. It's cleaned, and this is all volunteers. There's about 600 or 700 people there that are getting housed, hot water, heat, everything, food. Like, you would go into an amazing dining room at lunch and supper and just get fed by, guys wearing ties, like, black suits, black vests.
The whole penguin get up.
And that would be your buddy, because that's his job there, right, is a waiter. So you'd be kind of sitting there at morning worship, which is, you had to be there 7 o'clock, up early, 7 o'clock for a Bible discourse in the morning. And you'd be sitting there, wiping your eyes and trying to wake up, and your buddy's serving you eggs. And you're like looking up at him like you might have had a drink with him last night. 2 huge buildings, like I said, this is almost like dorms where you would sleep. All these different buildings, like woodworking buildings, groundscaping. It's like their own little city in Georgetown. Again, immaculate. People would visit all the time. They would want your number just because you're a Bethelite. Guy, girl, it didn't matter. Like, you were the king shit in that area, so to speak.
How long were you there for?
Just under 2 years, over a year and a half. And it was enjoyable. Like I said, it was, at that time, that's what you think your life is supposed to be about, right? Until, like you said, you break some of the rules, and then you're told that you have to, when you get disfellowshipped, you're basically told that, okay, you committed a foul, like you disobeyed our instructions, and you have to leave. No one can have any contact you, friends, family, and you have to work your way back in. You have to prove to them that basically you've changed your ways and you're no longer gonna disobey God's law.
And you were disfellowshipped.
Disfellowshipped, yeah. They call it, it's pretty crazy. You actually have a form, I believe it's called an S-77 form that they have, and like the reason for disfellowshipping will be written on there. Tyler MacDonald, he was disfellowshipped for, and they use the Greek word for like sexuality, which is porneia. It's actually, it's the number one I would have to say the number one thing that people get disfellowship for. Because, I mean, it's not natural to hold back someone, like, you know, if someone wants to be with someone that they care about, it's a very unnatural thing. You know, like I was in a relationship with a girl, and, you know, excited, first relationship, first person I kind of really liked, you know, and then you go tell your mom, hey, I got this new girl, like, you know, it's pretty, that's, oh my God, you have to bury that, you have to break up with her, never speak about it again, you're going to get kicked out. You're going to get kicked out of this religion. It was a panic moment for my parents.
Because she's a worldly.
Because she's worldly. She doesn't believe what we believe. So it's designed to keep that tight circle where no one can get in. Again, like it's like when someone goes and does higher education, because you can. You can go to university if you want, but anyone who I ever saw go to university was treated as if they weren't spiritual. So you would lose status somewhat, you know? It was almost like you were always constantly weighing, well, I mean, I need an education, right? But they would be happy if you went and did carpentry or a trade, because that you're not going to learn that they're a false religion there. But if you're becoming a teacher and you're learning philosophy, or if you're learning history and you're learning about different other various high control groups, or, you know, you're going to realize, holy crap, I'm in one. So they don't want that, right?
That's wild. So Tyler, it's been 4 years. You said the contact with your parents are still involved, or your mother's still involved. Sorry.
Yeah, she's still involved. So it wasn't like I said. So she married a guy, like a friend of mine, who was a Jehovah's Witness. Great guy. They're all great people. Most of them are just like they are, like you would imagine when they come to the door. Great people. It's not the people that are the problem. It's the policies that they follow. And again, the reason that happens is because you have 8 guys who supposedly have this direct link to God. That's the other part, that they're telling people, well, listen, I should say the belief growing up and how you felt about them was that they had a special connection. Now recently they've come out and put in print that they don't have anything special and that they are infallible. So they're not inspired of God or infallible, which is, you know, just a couple, you know, years ago my mom thought they were inspired. You know, she'd been 27 years in it and didn't know that wasn't true, because everyone just assumed, well, they're printing this to have a direct link to God. But they absolutely don't, right? And then they put it in print. We're infallible and we make mistakes. We're just like a regular person, and we're not inspired. We don't have a direct link to God. Well, then you got a problem, because you're telling me what to do. You're kicking me out of a religion, and you're telling me you're just the same as me. So there's a difference of opinion. There's a lot to lose. I mean, I've lost, you know, my mother, all my friends, all my life that I've, you know, been a Jehovah's Witness, and I lost all of that. So the stakes are very high, and you're not really, when you first join up, and even when you're in it having a good time, sometimes those high stakes don't really jump out at you until something happens and you lose everything. Like I can walk through, you know, the mall. These people will avoid me like I'm diseased. At this point now, I'm at peace with it. Like I kind of find just mildly humorous that they won't look at me. These are people that, I mean, when I meet someone, for example, I'm going to see them 5 years later. Even if I haven't seen them in 5 years, I'm going to be like, hey, what are you at? What's all the news? I can't picture myself turning someone away. Even when I was a part of it, I still didn't know that. I still thought that wasn't right, because I'd see someone run into them and just be awkward. And there's people, you know, that aren't quite as adept at making friends afterwards, or maybe hadn't made friends like I did before I left. That this is, you know, heavily affecting. People are actually taking their lives over this, and, you know, they'll never change. They say they won't change because this is the way, you know, the Bible says it. And every time they have an issue, it's because of the Bible. They point to the Bible. Well, I mean, the Bible says you shouldn't eat with such a man who is fornicating or unclean or who's a drunkard. But the problem is, you know, they do eat with drunkards. they're not treated with the same, you know, indignity as someone who just has a consensual relationship, right? Because that's really wrong.
So what's it like now? I mean, you've been out for 4 years. I mean, and you grew up as a part of it. I mean, 4 years isn't a long time to be, completely separated from something like that. So I mean, what's it like now? Like looking back at all of it.
It's crazy. It almost seems like a dream. Like it seems like it didn't. Like that wasn't real. I'm not really. Sometimes you wake up and you're in the shower and you're like, man, I just gotta call my parents, but I can't. Unless I'm in like a car accident, like emergencies, you're allowed to talk. But otherwise, there's zero communication unless you want to become a full-fledged, perfect Jehovah's Witness again. And, I mean, the other kind of side of the coin now is they're getting in trouble legally with their policy. They have this thing, they don't call it this, they don't call it the two-witness rule, they're just following the scriptures. It's something that kind of the secular world has given to them. But, I mean, it's a problem, the way things were dealt with child abuse, essentially. So, vulnerable sectors, that happens all the time. It's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. It's, obviously we know what happens with the Catholics. And
right, we've seen the stuff happen here.
Exactly. So, I mean, I know of things that happen here within the Jehovah's Witness community as well. The thing that's getting them in trouble, though, is, like, for example, if a young child says that person A abused me, they won't go to the police. They'll handle it in-house. So they'll talk to that young person, and they'll say, well, what happened? And they'll have to tell, it's a really intimidating type of structure, too. Like I said, 3 older men, they're asking you questions about what happened. So when you tell them what happened, they go to the accused, and if he denies it, they don't do anything about it. So they say, well, we need 2 witnesses. We need 2 witnesses. And it's like that with everything. Like if I said you stole from me, they won't just take my word for it. They would need a second witness. Which in cases of like stealing loaves of bread, that's not a bad policy to follow. But when's the last time a child got abused with another witness? It doesn't happen. It's always a crime of, under the darkness.
Right.
Under the guise of no one seeing me, right? So what happens is now, and this is getting them in trouble, they essentially have documented cases of pedophilia pretty much in every congregation across the globe of Jehovah's Witnesses that wasn't handled properly. So if they get investigated, or one of the victims comes back and says, hey, look, like I'm completely in emotional turmoil over this, all the police have to do is walk into the Kingdom Hall, look at the Kingdom Hall's records, because they keep records of everything, and then they kind of look at it and go, this looks like a pedophilia case. How come you haven't reported it to the police? And they're like, well, there wasn't another witness. But guess what? It doesn't matter. You have to report, and they're clergy. They're trying to say that they're not clergy. They're trying to say, well, the elders were not clergy, but they are. They're responsible for shepherding the congregation, just like a regular priest, care for everybody.
Right.
So they try to get out of responsibility of reporting by saying that they're not clergy.
Even though they weren't.
In reality, everyone knows they are.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not something. And again, when you talk to a Jehovah's Witness about this, they're gonna pull back because they're gonna feel like you're telling them that all Jehovah's Witnesses are abusers.
Right.
But that's not true. There's abusers everywhere. It's just a matter of how you're dealt with. You have to deal with them properly. I mean, it's called the Australian Royal Commission, and it was convened because of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a study that they did fully on Jehovah's Witnesses. And the crazy part about that is they found that 1,006 unreported cases of abuse. So I wouldn't just say pedophilia. That's like cases of like a 19-year-old abusing or like in a relationship with a 13-year-old. So there are other cases involved, but the problem is any case like that is a legal case. It should be reported if it's found out, And this is something that I raised in, not only that, I would be sitting down as a 6-year-old child watching the news, and if there was a story about the Catholic Church and the abuse and everything, anyone who was a Jehovah's Witness and who was an adult who was in that room with me would be like, can't believe. Good thing we're in the right religion. Good thing we're in the true religion. So growing up, I honestly thought it didn't even happen, let alone Barry Bonds type numbers, Hall of Fame numbers. And I mean, then I actually talked to my family about this, and they did their own research on the matter and came back and said, you know, it was only 56 cases of pedophilia out of all those 1,006, which I'm going to go on a limb here and say is a lie. But even if it's 56, if it's 58, the point is not how many. The point is how you're dealing with it. And they're not dealing with it properly.
So now, again, you're out looking back. I mean, you talked about it being, you said a good upbringing. Your mom was in a certain situation where definitely, of course, it helped her out.
For sure.
But now you're out and you're looking back, and of course you have these criticisms of it as well. So what's next?
Well, I mean, the best way, I got a lot of friends, there are a few others that are around that have been kicked out as well, so it is growing. The number of people that are waking up is growing. So essentially, you have to learn how to move on with your life. And, I mean, you can either use these, stumbling blocks in front of you to actually stumble over and have a detrimental effect, or you can turn them into stairs and make yourself a better person, So you basically got no other choice. I mean, it hurts every day that I can't talk to my own mother. I mean, I was raised by a single mom. But, I mean, if essentially with all the people that are waking up to it, there's a little bit of hope that something will happen. I mean, essentially, the group is going to run out of money. They just had a $35 million lawsuit in Montana. So at a certain point, they're not going to really be what they were. They're dwindling all the time. They're losing money, which I've talked to one lawyer who says they have to adapt. They've only been a religion for 100 years. Catholicism has been around 1,800 years. So look at how much they watered down their strictness, because essentially you're going to lose membership. If you're going to be that strict, and this is the rule, or this is our way or the highway, you can't be homosexual, you can't have sex before marriage, you can't do anything, you can't, do anything you want. People are just going to be like, well, I'm going to leave. And then the more people that leave, the less money they're going to have, but these lawsuits aren't going away. So they're going to have to kind of survive, do something to survive. And my hope is that my friends and my parents and my mother kind of realize that it's a bit foolish, to not talk to your only son over a difference of opinion. So you got to kind of make sure that you're around when she wakes up,
If you had a chance to talk to your mom, what would you say?
I would try and be as logical as possible, because when you, and this goes for, that's a great question, because it goes for all Jehovah's Witnesses. Again, you got to make sure that you're not mean to them, because they are great people. They, super nice. They will do anything for you. Like, they're that type of people. You just have to make sure that that they're brainwashed. Especially knowing for myself, I was in it. I know how you feel. I know how it feels when you see someone who's disfellowshipped. When I was in it, and then I saw someone who wasn't in it, like who got kicked out, you almost feel your heart go up a little bit. You're like, oh my goodness, there's a disfellowshipped person. They don't believe what we believe anymore. They've signed it off. They're going to die. So if I was to say anything to Mom, it would be just pleading with her, and more so of, this is your son. I haven't changed. I'm the same person. I just don't believe exactly what you believe. If we went around every day, having a difference of opinion with everybody, I mean, you'd never have any friends, because everybody has a different opinion, right? So, and like I said, I would never cut anyone off just because they like Toronto Maple Leafs and someone else likes Montreal Canadiens. So, I think it's silly, but you have to, it's easier to get exasperated with them too, because you're doing something that everybody else and yourself can so clearly see is damaging. You're damaging other people emotionally. It's emotional blackmail is what it is. Because they're saying, we want you to come back. There's only one way that you can live. there's only one way you can survive. And by the way, this isn't some Armageddon that's coming in 10 years or 20 years. They believe it's literally happening around the corner. Like, they could wake up at any moment, and God has chosen to destroy all the wicked people, and just Jehovah's Witnesses are going to live. So, it's a bit of a sensitive topic, because they believe my life and their life's at stake. So if they talk to me, they're going to lose. I'm already losing my life. If they talk to me, they lose theirs. So it's really hard to try and reason with someone like that. So the only way you got to do it is to be as logical and as nice as possible. Yeah, the other aspect of it is I mean, like I said, it's right here down the street from you. You know, like, you can walk in at any time and have a conversation with these people, and ask them. This is the types of things that should be asked. Like, are you guys aware that you're traumatizing people? There's numerous class action lawsuits in Canada, not just the world. We're talking about close to home, where people are, like I said, they're attempting suicide. They are actually taking their own lives over this serious. It's just, and these are people that show up Saturday morning. Hey, how are ya? Do you have a moment to talk? Such nice people, and they do come across nice, but there's a pretty sinister, background to what they're preaching, right? And coming from someone who, I used to go door to door 70 hours a month and tell people, but I know it's not true now.
Wow, no, that's thank you so much for sitting here and sharing your story with me. It's of course a lot to take in. It's like you yourself described it as a wild situation. And like, coming from somebody on the outside who had no knowledge about the inside of the Jehovah's Witnesses. All this stuff that's going on, like, it's I think it's an important message to get out there for other people to know, like, what the people who are coming to your door knocking on, like, what's it like on the inside? What's it like? What's their life like? For sure.
Yeah, no, it's something that, like I said, it can be a guise. There's a bit of a beard there.
Right.
They have a nice appearance on the outside. When you go to the Kingdom Hall, even like my father, this is 27 years ago or 28 years ago, I remember my mom saying that my dad went with her just for one or two meetings, and he was like, these people are ridiculously nice, like almost too nice. But when you look at, and like I said, you've talked to experts in the field, what happens when someone joins a cult? Love bombed. So you're going, how could I not see these people before? This is the nicest thing I've ever been a part of. And they get you in, and they get you believing it, and they get you thinking in their line of thinking, and then once you get in, you can't get out. You can, they'll tell you, oh, we're free to leave at any time. Yeah, like, you're free to not show up to a couple meetings and kind of just drift away. But if they find out that you're not following their policies and their laws openly, they'll show up at a door with a letter and say, you're no longer one of us, because we've heard that this is going on. So, like I said, we could talk for days.
Yeah.
There's so much about this. And one of the things that people, just talking to friends, they're like, this is crazy. These people are just walking through Costco, and you never know. Like, I could be with a friend of mine, and some people will be wondering, like, how come that person's acting weird? Like, they're not looking at us, or they're staring. They might even stare, like, oh my goodness, that's Tyler. And like I said, where I actually made it to Bethel, that was like, there's only about 1,300 or 1,400 or so Jehovah's Witnesses on the island of Newfoundland. So, like, and not many of them go to Bethel. There's probably like 4 ever, 4 or 5 in
Wow.
the history of the organization.
No way.
So it, like
This
I
is
said,
a huge
it was
deal.
A huge deal. They had a party for me. They gave me $10,000, right? So, like, it's a huge, big deal. And then for that person now to no longer believe it,
Right.
it's kind of an Achilles heel for them, right? And that's more or less going forward. I don't want to ruin anyone's. I don't want to be confrontational. I don't want to, like, go around and disrupt Kingdom Halls, because that's something that people are doing, when they're emotionally traumatized, like you can be. But I mean, just spreading the word, mouth to mouth, word of mouth in a small place like this, it'll do some good. It'll wake some people up to the fact that, oh, man, they're not as nice as they say they are. They're nice people, sure, but be careful if you're getting involved with them, because number one, they're lying. The doctrine is not true if you actually look at it. And number two, you got a whole lot to lose if you leave. Your entire life. You have to start from ground zero when you're 26 years old. And you gotta go, oh my God, I'm not living forever? Because that's the belief that you are all gonna die, and that only Jehovah's Witnesses are gonna be on a perfect paradise earth. They actually have a scripture that they follow where it says that the buzzards, like the vultures, will eat the carcasses of all the people that God killed. So, they believe a pretty crazy thing. That's a pretty crazy thing to believe, that 8 million people out of 8 billion or 9 billion are only going to survive. 99% of the planet is going to die, and your guys are going to be happy about that, cleaning up corpses. So, like I said, make sure you look into it before you have a chat with them. Hang out with them, totally, because they're great people, but don't believe in anything they said. The other thing about that we didn't really say is that they have a belief that they don't take blood transfusions, which is a huge deal to a lot of people. When I was spending 70 hours in the ministry, going around knocking on doors and telling people the truth, which is actually not the truth, which is kind of ironic, but they would say that would be something someone would bring up to you. Well, I heard you kill your children. Now, it's pretty harsh because they don't actually kill their children. But if your child got hit by the school bus, or if you got hit by a car walking from the school bus and needed blood to live, they wouldn't give it to you. And it's based off of 2 scriptures. One is a scripture in the first part of the Bible, which Jesus told in the second part of the Bible to forget about. He says, this is old and outdated. People are burying, this is the 21st century where we can save someone's life by means of a blood transfusion. And you're taking the scripture to abstain from blood out of a part where Jesus said, this is outdated. You don't ever have to follow this again. And by the numbers, 35,000 to about 40,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have lost their life because they'll be in a room completely hooked up, about to die, and they'll say, no blood. And the doctors have no other choice, because that's your choice to refuse any medical treatment. But, it's blown everyone away that, not only that too, they actually have what's called a hospital liaison committee, which if you're in the hospital and you're unable to talk for yourself, these elders will come in and talk for you and explain to you that you're not going to take blood. And that might mean your life.
And we're talking about kids.
I personally know a family who lost their newborn child, and in the late 80s, early 90s because of that, and they wholeheartedly believe that they're going to see him in the resurrection too. So once God brings about the end of this wicked system, they're going to see their child again. So which is a great idea in your mind, but it's just not realistic. It's probably not going to happen, and they've been told that, and that's something that they'll use to hang on. A lot of times too, because of that belief that someone's going to come back, someone who is faithful, a faithful Jehovah's Witness who died, is going to return. That's another thing that keeps people going and keeps people attending, because if your grandma died and you were really close, or if your father, any member of family, close friend, you and everyone around you genuinely believes that they're going to be seen again. So I know an individual that I knew from Mississauga who was super, super close to her brother, and her brother lost his life. She barely believes in really any other part of the religion, only that's the part.
Just the resurrection. That's
the part. I'm going to see him again. And they tell you it's coming soon. I was recently, this is a crazy fact, I was recently at a funeral, a Jehovah's Witness funeral, where a middle-aged woman died of cancer, and I heard them telling her children, that you're going to see mommy very soon. So what that does, and I've seen that there's zero closure. So they believe that, these kids are 13 years old, 14. They're going to school, telling their friends at school that, like, mommy's gone, but we're going to see her again real soon. Which is not the case. I mean, we're fairly certain at this point that, every part of their doctrine, I've looked it all through. I mean, it's false. And then I've seen that being told to kids that are now my age, that when their parents died, back when I was 13 or 14, I had a friend, same thing, zero closure. They ended up with a lot of problems, a lot of issues, because they were told it's right around the corner. Not 10 years from now. We're at 10, 11, 12, 13 years from when that person dies. You're expecting that person to come back. And expecting that person to come back. It's right around the corner, and you kind of strive to be the best Jehovah's Witness you can be, because that you don't want to not be there. You don't want them to get resurrected and then you not to be there. So you hustle your arse off to be the best Jehovah's Witness you can, and then nothing happens. And then next year, nothing happens. And then next year, nothing happens. They said it was going to come in 1925, in 1945, 1975, and now, with their doctrine, you can put an end on it too. Like, you can put an end date on it. If it doesn't come by like 2040 something, this is something like someone personally told me, if the end doesn't come by the 2045, we know it's all a sham. And that's an active member. So he's going to put stake in the fact that this is true, but we're not going to know if it's true or not till 2045 when we've all wasted our lives. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, what kind of effect would that have on somebody's psyche, especially a child who, like, you said you lose your mother or your father, and you're expecting it could be tomorrow, it could be it could be an hour from now, and then there's a real tangible idea that you're gonna see these people again.
An adult is telling you that that's what they wholeheartedly believe. I was actually, when I left that funeral, a friend of mine stepped in front of me, and in front of everyone said, "Tyler, come back. It's almost too late." And I kind of was like, yeah. I didn't want to get into anything major there out of respect for, we're at a funeral. Right. It's really not the place. So I said, yeah, hopefully I'll see you soon. Right? Because, hopefully you'll wake up and then I'll be able to talk to you that way. It's kind of like the way you got to approach it, right? Because they wholeheartedly believe it, right? So, like I said, I think we covered everything.